Have you ever watched someone peel back a curtain and discover the machine hiding behind the magic? Imagine that the glittering show you've been clapping for is actually running on hidden gears. Paid plugs, fake plays, and a handful of people pressing buttons in the dark. That's exactly the mood here. Today we're diving into something that, if true, changes how you listen to the last decade of rap. Leaked audio clips attributed to Young Thug, private phone calls caught in the wild, have set off a shockwave. They suggest that some of the biggest names in mainstream hip-hop have been quietly buying streams, using plugs and stream farms to manufacture chart wins. And yes, the accusations touch top famous names, playlists, and even albums you thought were earned. But first, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell. I would really appreciate it. I'll break everything down piece by piece, what those calls say, what they might mean, and how this affects the entire game. Stick with me because the rabbit hole gets darker and we'll end with what really matters: accountability, culture, and how fans should react. Picture this: a candid phone call, no PR team, no curated image, just someone talking to a friend, irritated, candid, bragging, or angry. That's the texture of the audio that's been circulating. These clips aren't stage interviews. They're raw, sometimes messy, and full of name-dropping. That's why they sting. In the clips that surfaced, Young Thug allegedly talks about paying for streams, not as a hypothetical or a joke, but as a routine transaction. He reportedly tells stories about how he paid to get chart positions for associates, and how he and his circle leaned on these methods when a genuine streaming push was at risk. The language in the clips is blunt: money exchanged, plug referenced, and explicit talk about affecting Billboard placements. Why does this matter? Because it's not just about one song sneaking onto a playlist. It's about the integrity of the system. If chart success can be purchased in chunks, the whole idea of merit, fans voting with streams, starts to crumble. And these aren't little indie releases. The names being bounced around are mainstream figures whose careers, brand deals, and cultural influence ride on chart performance. Listen to how these clips sound. There's a quality to them that isn't performative. You hear offhand comments, frustrations about competitors, and a sense of routine around buying streams, which suggests this wasn't a one-off scheme but a practiced strategy. Whether everything in the tapes is legally provable is another conversation, but they certainly reframe the narrative around how certain records reached the heights they did. One of the clearest pieces of the puzzle that people keep talking about involves Gunna's DS Forever release and a blunt, specific number: $50,000. According to the audio, Young Thug recounts paying that sum to push streams, enough to nudge a release into a higher chart position over a heavyweight like The Weeknd's Dawn FM. Imagine the scene. It's release week, tensions are high, and the difference between number 1 and number 2 on the Billboard 200 is razor thin. In the clip, Thug explains that someone, Cash, The Weeknd's manager, called him, and he explained he had put money into stream boosts that got Gunna to number 1. Thug even describes telling people that he paid for the position, though he claimed he hadn't personally told Gunna. Why mention a hard dollar amount? Because specificity does two things. First, it makes the claim feel more real. $50,000 is a tangible, believable figure for a serious campaign. Second, it gives skeptics something to examine. If stream boosts cost this much and move the needle, labels and artists can, and apparently do, budget for them like any other promotional expense. That's a huge, uncomfortable thought. Now, of course, there are other readings. Maybe this is bravado, chest thumping to sound powerful. Maybe the number is inflated for effect. But follow the cascade. In a separate recorded call, Thug allegedly panics when his own album risks losing its chart top spot to Morgan Wallen, and he asks his team to contact the plug. The same language used about Gunna. That pattern, spending to secure charts, panicked calls to the same contacts, is what makes the story much more than a single brag. Okay, so what does plug mean in this context? In underground parlance, a plug can be anything from a shady middleman to a service that provides bots, fake accounts, or coordinated streaming sessions. The audio uses that term casually like it's part of daily business. You still got that plug, right? Which implies these operations are normalized. How might this be executed? From what's been reported in similar cases and in industry chatter, there are a few common tactics. Networks of automated devices or accounts that loop tracks repeatedly to inflate play counts. They're cheap and anonymous if set up properly, getting added to power playlists through payola-style arrangements, sometimes via shady curators. One placement on a big editorial list can drive real streams. Then you layer bots to keep momentum. Funnel streams through countries or regions where the platform's anti-fraud systems are weaker, or where plays count the same, but detection is slower. Using thousands of micro-accounts, each contributing a handful of plays, so the pattern looks organic. The alarming thing the calls seem to suggest is not only that the plug exists, but that it's reliable enough to be part of a release strategy. The language in the conversations treats it like a vendor relationship, which implies repeated transactions, tracked outcomes, and crucially, a belief that the ROI was worth it. Listen for the casualness. When an artist or manager treats an illegal market service like a vendor, the moral calculus shifts. It becomes another line item in a rollout spreadsheet, which is exactly what many have feared the streaming era would turn music into. Now let's talk about names that push headlines. Drake. The original clips and the chatter circling them bring Drake into the frame, not as a background player, but as someone who allegedly benefited from these tactics. Features that counted toward his numbers, plays that buoyed his catalog. Here's where things get sticky. Drake occupies a unique cultural space. Superstar status, millions of streams, billions of dollars in brand value. If even a portion of those numbers is propped up by artificial plays, the fallout is enormous. It's not just about Drake being exposed. It's about the trust economy. Fans believe charts reflect taste, playlists reflect attention, and streaming totals indicate cultural standing. If those metrics are manipulable for a price, industry narratives, who's winning, who's dominant, can be manufactured. The calls reportedly suggest that Drake wasn't merely a passive beneficiary. The creative and rollout fingerprints were present on projects that allegedly used artificial boosts. Again, the audio doesn't equal a court verdict. But the allegation lands like a grenade. For Drake's defenders, it's an easy target to deflect. Well, Kendrick did the same, or this is just heat-seeking. For skeptics, it's proof of structural problems, where star power plus label dollars plus bot services equal manufactured dominance. What makes this particularly potent is Drake's image as an architect of the streaming culture. Playlists stuffed with his music across genres, a presence in nearly every algorithmic corner. If he helped normalize aggressive chart tactics, then others copied him. And the ripple effects, from smaller artists being crowded out to labels doubling down on shady plays, are enormous. When a scandal erupts, human behavior follows predictable tracks: deny, deflect, attack the messenger. That dynamic shows up here, too. One of the most visible maneuverings has been attempts to pivot the conversation away from these alleged stream-boosting tactics and instead pin the conversation on other artists, notably Kendrick Lamar, accusing them of the same crimes. DJ Academics, a popular commentator with a huge platform, reportedly tried to reframe the narrative. If this is happening, it's happening to everyone. That's a standard PR play. Make the problem look systemic and therefore less damning for any one player. But there's a strategic aim: muddy the waters so that accusations about particular stars don't stick. So what's the takeaway? Watch the narrative control moves. When a major player tries to shift blame, it's often because their position is threatened. That doesn't prove guilt, but it is a tell about who feels vulnerable. Culturally, this creates cynicism. Fans who discover manipulation feel betrayed. Emerging artists who play by the rules get squeezed. Critics who champion authenticity find their arguments undermined when chart success can be purchased. At the end of the day, the art suffers, and music loses some of its cultural trust. As a fan, what can you do besides keyboard outrage? Here's a practical playbook. Be a critical listener. Numbers are useful, but not the whole story. Your attention still matters. Vote with it. We started this video with a question. What happens when the magic is revealed to be a machine? The Young Thug audio clips, whether they end up in court or simply in the public record, have given us a rare backstage view. They suggest a marketplace where chart positions can be bought, where the line between PR and fraud blurs, and where superstar status can be engineered. This moment should force a reckoning, not just for the artists named in the leaks, but for an industry that turned culture into metrics and then forgot those metrics could be manipulated. Labels, platforms, artists, and fans all play a role in fixing it. So I'll leave you with these questions. How deep do you think this goes? Do you still trust the charts? And if your favorite artist was involved in this, what would you need to see to forgive them? Drop your thoughts in the comment. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives. Thanks for watching. And as always, stay active.